blank, he would have to suspend his researches. Experience has shown that the extreme limit for such submarine explorations lies between 120 and 130 feet, and that below this there is a great danger, the human organism not only being hindered from performing his functions under such a pressure, but the apparatus failing to keep up a sufficient supply of air with the desirable regularity. But Benito was resolved to go as far as his mental powers and physical energies would let him. By some strange presentiment he was drawn toward this abyss. It seemed to him as though the corpse was very likely to have rolled to the bottom of the hole, and that Torres, if he had any heavy things about him, such as a belt containing either money or arms, would have sunk to the very lowest point. Of a sudden, in a deep hollow, he saw a body through the gloom. Yes, a corpse, still clothed, stretched out like a man asleep, with his arms folded under his head. Was that Torres? In the obscurity, then very dense, he found it difficult to see, but it was a human body that lay there, less than 10 paces off, and perfectly motionless. A sharp pang shot through Benito. His heart for an instant ceased to beat. He thought he was going to lose consciousness. By a supreme effort he recovered himself. He stepped toward the corpse. Suddenly a shock as violent as unexpected made his whole frame vibrate. A long whip seemed to twine round his body, and in spite of the thick diving dress he felt himself lashed again and again. "A gymnotus!" he said. It was the only word that passed his lips. In fact, it was a puraque, the name given by the Brazilians to the gymnotus, or electric snake, which had just attacked him. It is well known that the gymnotus is a kind of eel with a blackish, slimy skin, furnished along the back and tail with an apparatus composed of plates joined by vertical lamellae, and acted on by nerves of considerable power. This apparatus is endowed with singular electrical properties, and is apt to produce very formidable results. Some of these gymnotuses are about the length of a common snake, others are about 10 feet long, while others, which, however, are rare, even reach 15 or 20 feet, and are from 8 to 10 inches in diameter. Gymnotuses are plentiful enough both in the Amazon and its tributaries, and it was one of these living coils, about 10 feet long, which, after uncurving itself like a bow, again attacked the diver. Benito knew what he had to fear from this formidable animal. His clothes were powerless to protect him. The discharges of the gymnotus, at first somewhat weak, became more and more violent, and there would come a time when, exhausted by the shocks, he would be rendered powerless. Benito, unable to resist the blows, half dropped upon the sand. His limbs were becoming paralyzed little by little under the electric influences of the gymnotus, which lightly touched his body as it wrapped him in its folds. His arms even he could not lift, and soon his spear escaped him, and his hand had not strength enough left to pull the cord and give the signal. Benito felt that he was lost. Neither Manoel nor his companions could suspect the horrible combat which was going on beneath them between the formidable puraque and the unhappy diver, who only fought to suffer, without any power of defending himself. And that at the moment when a body, the body of Torres without a doubt, had just met his view. By a supreme instinct of self-preservation, Benito uttered a cry. His voice was lost in the metallic sphere, from which not a sound could escape. And now the puraque redoubled its attacks. It gave forth shock after shock, which made Benito writhe on the sand like the sections of a divided worm, and his muscles were wrenched again and again beneath the living lash. Benito thought that all was over. His eyes grew dim, his limbs began to stiffen. But before he quite lost his power of sight and reason he became the witness of a phenomenon unexpected, inexplicable, and marvelous in the extreme. A deadened roar resounded through the liquid depths. It was like a thunderclap, the reverberations of which rolled along the river bed, then violently agitated by the electrical discharges of the gymnotus. Benito felt himself bathed, as it were, in the dreadful booming which found an echo in the very deepest of the river depths. And then a last cry escaped him, for fearful was the vision which appeared before his eyes. The corpse of the drowned man, which had been stretched on the sand, arose. The undulations of the water lifted up the arms, and they swayed about as if with some peculiar animation. Convulsive throbs made the movement of the corpse still more alarming. It was indeed the body of Torres. One of the sun's rays shot down to it through the liquid mass, and Benito recognized the bloated, ashy features of the scoundrel who fell by his own hand, and whose last breath had left him beneath the waters. And while Benito could not make a single movement with his paralyzed limbs, while his heavy shoes kept him down as if he had been nailed to the sand, the corpse straightened itself up, the head swayed to and fro, and disentangling itself from the hole in which it had been kept by a mass of aquatic weeds, it slowly ascended to the surface of the Amazon. End of the chapter 10.